Good evening, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to News in Focus. My name is Faraz Patel. We say Jazakallah to you, the viewer, for staying with us here on Hilaal TV, DSTV channel 347. Now, tomorrow, the ANC Women's League will be having a march to the Union buildings under the banner United Against Violence, or United for a Justice. So this march is going to take place in the Union buildings. This is in line with the 16 days of activism against violence perpetrated on women and children. And joining me now, I'd like to welcome the senior NEC member from the ANC Women's League, Boitumelo Moiloa. Boitumelo, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on News in Focus on Hilaal TV.
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers too.
Boitumelo, I mean, the ANC Women's League has had quite a lot of marches, especially when we had, that fresh bout of gender-based violence that occurred in 2019. Obviously, we look 5 years later, and even though we've got the gender-based violence and femicide bill, which has been obviously enacted into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa, there still seems to be an uncertainty as to how the country needs to deal with gender-based violence. What would the ANC Women's League say would be different to this march as to previous ones?
The reason we are taking this march to the Union building is precisely because you would remember that in other marches we have been marching in provinces, we have been marching in regions, but we have never marched to the Union building as a country. So we are saying, in honoring the 1956 women that marched to the Union building and made a change at that time, we are honoring them to say, because we have been marching, there is this law, there has been bills that are there that are aiming at combating gender-based violence. This time will be different because we are saying all of us must go there, because we are saying gender-based violence does not have a race, color, or anything, any political party. All of us, either way, we are affected by gender-based violence. So as women leaders in this country, we are calling all civil organizations, we are calling the pastors, we are calling the sangomas, we are calling everyone to come, even male counterparts. We are saying to them, let them come and march with us on the 29th, because in that march, they will be saying, not in our name, because we know there are good men out there who are actually, in fact, affected by the gender-based violence. Either they are mothers, they are sisters, they are a niece, So that is why we are saying, if those women were alive today, they will be doing the same thing. It's just that at that time, they were marching under the laws that says don't pass. But today we are marching saying, government, you have a bill, but as government we don't see much being done. For instance, if I may make an example, we have this parole board. We have a law in this country that gives perpetrators parole. And when you look at those perpetrators, some of them, after being given parole, government is not even monitoring their movement. Government doesn't even have a data of these parolees. And when you look at the perpetrators these days, I'll make an example of the Sikisiki incident, where a parolee has made that again. So we are saying, as the Women's League, enough is enough. We want Justice Department and the government, different departments, to come and say to us, they must change the law so that the parolees can be tracked. The other thing that we aim at gaining in that march is that you would know that perpetrators are being arrested. Every day you will get saying the suspect has been arrested. But after 2-3 days, that suspect is given bail. When you trace back to check why is this suspect given bail, you will get the response from justice that the DNA results has not yet come in. So it's about time that they expedite the process of giving out DNA results so that those perpetrators don't get bail. But also we are saying as the Women's League, why don't we bring back the death penalty?
I'm going to touch on that after the break because I want to focus on the justice system, and you've made valid points there. Sorry, I'm interjecting, Boitumelo, because I want to touch on this gender-based violence and femicide bill, of course, signed by President Cyril Ramaphosa a few months ago. Minister in the presidency for Women and Youth, Sindiswa Chikunga, has said that part of this bill now has to be education. How much of this education amongst men? Because as men, we need to raise our hands up and say, we are perpetrators number one when it comes to either committing this crime or standing by and allowing it to happen. So how much does education amongst men play a role, and what is the ANC Women's League going to do post this march to make sure that that education actually happens, that men understand the value of women, especially within these 16 days and beyond?
What we are saying in that is that, like you are saying, correctly saying that, and even the Women's League saying that men must come to that march. We are saying in education, you don't start education when a man is old. Let's start it from the schools, because the manner in which we are treating our boy child is different from the way we treat our girl child. So as Women's League, we are saying we started there, but also as male counterparts or as men, we live in a society where boys or where we have women-headed household. So as the Women's League, we want to educate. We want our male counterparts to hold hands with us. When we embark, we'll assist in actual fact, because the Women's League has always been there to assist our women, because most of the people who are being affected is women. We will be there to go hand in hand with male counterparts to educate, but also social development should make sure that it has the centers where, I think in the Northwest there is something like that, where there is a center where male can come and talk amongst themselves, because we know that our male counterparts are not able to talk to me, even if I'm a social worker. They can be able to talk to yourself. So I think if social development department can come on board, because it's part of this, can come on board in making sure that in the whole country, we have centers like those ones where men can go. If you are angry at home, you are able to go out there and talk to a male social worker, where you are able to open up. I think those things can be able to assist, because that also need a budget. So it means government, in that bill that they are talking about education, it should go with budget. They should empower social development so that it can have those homes where male counterparts are able to go and talk about whether they are being abused or whatever, so that they go out of there relieved and they are able to relate better with the challenge that they are having, instead of them going out and killing us. And also even the boys under social development, they have to be taken care of. Like we are saying, taking a girl child to work.
Sure.
We need also to take a boy child to work. Make sure that we nurture that boy child, that mind, we nurture it, because some of them come into drugs when they are 9 years old and they are depressed. At the age of 15 or 13, they are able to kill and do gruesome things that you can't even imagine. So that education is important. I think if that can be put in, if they can make sure that even they monitor, government must not say these things. Yes, we agree with them that that bill is good, but it should be implemented and monitored, and it should be funded. It shouldn't be just a talk show.
Boitumelo, I looked at the first South African national gender-based violence study, and of course the recent crime statistics released by Police Minister at the time, Senzo Mchunu, and he said that these are dark numbers. And I think the country has to understand this, am I right in saying it, that this gender-based violence issue is not going away anytime soon, because as recent as these studies over here have indicated, it's getting worse and worse. We've just got 1.5 minutes, Boitumelo, so I'm going to let you answer that before we go to the break.
Oh, thank you very much. I think he is right. That is why we stood up. And I must confirm, you will see wonders on Friday, because all civil society, all our people, NPOs, NGOs, Barutis, our traditional healers, men are saying enough is enough, because all of us have seen that this is getting worse, and it's getting worse on the 16 days of gender-based violence. If you look at the statistics from that time, they are getting worse and worse. So that is why on Friday we are saying no ways. We want to pull all government departments to come on board and be able to respond. That is why we are handing the memorandum to the president, not to a particular department, so that the president can distribute that memorandum to the department that is responsible for whatever we will be demanding on Friday.
After the break, I continue my conversation with Boitumelo Moiloa from the ANC Women's League. We're going to touch on the justice system. She mentioned earlier on death penalty. Can that be brought back for offenders of gender-based violence? Do stay tuned after this break. Welcome back to News in Focus. Of course, just a reminder, on Friday, the ANC Women's League will be conducting a march to the Union Building, of the start of the 16 days of activism against violence perpetrated on women and children. Of course, it's titled the United for Justice March. Boitumelo, I want to touch on the justice system. Before we go to the death penalty, of course, you know, we look at the crimes, and there were so many women, but I'm going to pick up two, of course, Uyanene, Riva Steenkamp, two of them. You've got the Uyanene trial that's still going. There's frustrations from her family. When, of course, Oscar Pistorius, who was sentenced for the murder of Riva Steenkamp, came, obviously was given parole. I know the ANC Women's League, of course, at the time voiced their dissatisfaction given the fact that there's been no real rehabilitation from his part. From the data perspective, because you mentioned that earlier on, is that something government needs to work on, not only from social development, but also justice and the police ministry, to try and track these offenders should they be granted bail? Because on many occasions, perpetrators of gender-based violence and sexual crimes have been let off the hook, and they're back into society and they're perpetrating these same crimes.
Yes, I think so. I think the reason why we are saying the justice system, we're not mixing our words when we talk about the justice system, because these perpetrators, they go out and do the same thing again. So we are saying, in actual fact, the Justice Department should be in a position to have a data of those parolees, and they must not give a person a parole just because that person has served a time or 10 or 5 years, and not being able to have tracked inside jail what that person was doing. Because at the end of the day, it affects us as women outside. So we are saying Justice Department should be in a position to have data. They should rehabilitate them before they let them off the hook. Because they should be in a position to say, we have rehabilitated Boitumelo Moiloa for a certain period. This person has passed this particular program of rehabilitation, because it can't be that we talk of same perpetrators every time. So that is why we are on point, and we are saying we want Justice Department to change the way it operates.
Death penalty, you've mentioned that now. Obviously, there's constitutional elements that come to that. And of course, when the Constitution was written in 1996, the death penalty, of course, that was history. And I want to ask, from the ANC Women's League perspective, when it comes to gender-based violence crimes, where does the death penalty come? Of course, it's a controversial topic, and it's something that if it does return, where do we draw the line between innocence and actual guilt? Talk to us about that, especially from a gender-based violence perspective.
In terms of that, we are clear. We are saying, why don't we bring it back? There are cases that when you look at this case, people have been sentenced. They have brutally murdered either young kids. A person rapes a 9-month-old baby, and then you give a sentence of 50 minimum or maximum, whatever sentence to that person. What do you think about the family of that child? What do you think about the life of that child? If that person goes to, if you are raped and you are 9 months old, and then after that, say you survive the rape, and then in 19 years' time, you are told that the person who actually raped you when you are 9 months old is out. What does that mean? So we are saying, as Women's League, Justice Department should be in a position to say, this one we are drawing the line. Yes, we must follow the laws of this country. But as the Women's League, we are clear on saying, bring it back. That could help. People will know that you can't rape a child. You can't rape an old woman, because some of them are raping even Abu Magogo Betu.
Sure.
They are raping our old women that are staying alone. So where should they get justice if South Africa cannot give them justice, if government cannot give them justice? So we are clear in saying, let the death penalty come. The law must take its course, but we know there are cases where we can say, but this one cannot be a death sentence. But I mean cases that are happening right now, where a person has been killed and has been thrown into the pigs. What does that mean in South Africa? Are we really saying as a society we are losing it that much that we won't have confidence in government? So that is why we are saying death penalty must come back.
Have you engaged with Justice Minister Dembisa Malani? And if so, what has been the discussions on the potential reviewing not just of the death penalty, but how the justice system needs to work for perpetrators against gender-based violence?
As the Women's League, we have not engaged, but it's something that we have been calling upon to say, but looking at what is happening right now, why don't we bring it back? So given the statistics, it made us to take a decision now to say, no man, the reason why we are going to hand over the memorandum, it says that even the minister will have to look at it. That is why we are saying they must review the laws that they are implementing, which some of them are not working really. So that is why we came up with that. Yes, the minister will see the memorandum and will engage after.
Boitumelo, the National Prosecuting Authority, of course, is the top of the tree when it comes to really being the crime-fighting unit. It's been an organization that has obviously suffered a lot of budgetary constraints. It is part of what this march is going to be, to try and address this to the president in saying, well, the NPA needs to be beefed up so that the sentencing of perpetrators of GBV are brought to book quickly, and that we do not have lengthy trials, which we've seen now. I mean, the Oyonene trial, it's 5 years and it's dragging on. And there still seems to be no sight at the end for justice for her. So where does, in this march that you're going to be having on Friday, how much of emphasis is there going to be on the NPA needing to be strengthened even further?
If you look at our demands, I think if you don't have, we'll provide.
Sure.
Yeah, because one of our demands is that the NPA also needs to get, because we are talking about the budget. They need to be resourced, NPA. We need to resource justice. We need to resource the departments that are basically dealing with this gender-based violence, because it has become a pandemic. And the president has from time to time talked about it and declared it as a pandemic. So why not resource the very same thing that you think that it's a pandemic? And you'd remember that the president even said the manner in which we fought COVID, gender-based violence, we need to tackle it that way. So it really means that NPA, all the departments that are clustered there, needs to be resourced. And that's one of our demands. So the president, when he looks at the memorandum of demands that we want as the Women's League, he will be in a position to give it to different ministers and look at it. And the finance minister must, in actual fact, come on board. He must be able to help us and free us from this gender-based violence. Because once you have this NPA that doesn't have budget, the police doesn't have budget, and Justice Department doesn't have, what do you mean? How are we then going to tackle gender-based violence? It means it becomes a talk shop, and we no longer want that. That is why we are going there in masses on Friday to say no. This thing must stop. And what we are going to do, we're not going to hand the memorandum only and leave. What we are going to do, we are going to make a follow-up. As a leadership, we have taken a decision that enough is enough. We have marched. We have done everything in our power. This one, it will be mother of all the marches. And in that, after that, as the structure, we are going to make a follow-up. The minister, like you asked earlier on that, have we engaged? Now we are going to engage them one to say, how far are you with this thing?
Boitumelo, one final question. As time is coming up, we just got less than 2 minutes. Trafficking, and this, of course, has to be clustered as part of gender-based violence. Jocelyn Smith, the young girl, is missing. Her mother's been alleged to have sold her for money. A few weeks ago, there was this disturbing tale of a mother selling her baby to a lawyer. Where do we draw the line in terms of, number one, assisting these parents who cannot look after children, for them to be financial support, should they, of course, need it? And number two, dealing with the actual buyers of children, because at the end of the day, they are paying money to buy these children for trafficking, whatever it is. So where's the ANC Women's League within this going to say, let's also address that with the president so that more children are not, and of course we're sitting in the year 2024 and it's disturbing talking about this, but how does this now put an end to it, given that we are seeing more than one occasions of this happening?
In actual fact, that is also part of our demands, that we are tired of mothers that, in actual fact, others are killing their kids. Others are selling them. So we have to embark on a program of empowerment.
Sure.
And we are saying, as a Women's League, we have volunteers all over the country that can even go. We need to have the social development that is empowered in terms of resources, to have drop-in centers. If you are a mother and you can't take it, that child, you can drop that child somewhere in a drop-in center where the child can be taken care of. But also the perpetrators of these things, we are saying to government, it's about time that Justice Department and the police and all these cluster, the security cluster, deals with that decisively, because we can't allow kids being sold. We deal with these ones that are buying, but also us as the Women's League, we come in to empower these young women, because most of them are young women. We come in, but also track the fathers of these kids, because you might find that this child who is 16 years old has a child with a grandfather. So we are also needing to get into that space. So as a Women's League, we are clear on that. It is in our memorandum. If you get that memorandum, you will see that we are addressing most of the things that are affecting women and children, including the ESCOM ones, including the things that are being done to women. So we are going to address that on Friday.
Boitumelo Moiloa, thank you so much for joining us on News in Focus on Hilaal TV. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
That's Boitumelo Moiloa, of course, senior NEC member of the ANC Women's League. That's all we have for you here on News in Focus from myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Stay beautiful, South Africa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.